Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Terrestrial Material, where we talk about the material us terrestrials are interested in. We have a very special episode tonight. We're calling this episode, well, I mean, we're not calling it. It is episode 17 podcast. But this is called the legislation situation. And of course, we have a very, very cool guest. I'm sure everyone knows him, but a very cool intro is always due. So New York Times, Washington Times, Politico, Fox News, CNN, you name it, guys. They've covered his work. He's traveled the world for the last 28 years as a political activist and seeker of disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence that is believed to be interacting with us terrestrials. Documentaries, YouTube, and Twitter, he's taken full advantage of the digital space as well and continues to be unrelenting in his efforts as the director of the Paradigm Research Group. We don't want to keep him waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stephen Bassett. Stephen, how are you doing tonight?
I'm not too bad. Doing fine.
I want to start off by thanking you for reposting a legible version of the Schumer Amendment. The original was very difficult to read. The 26 pages that you put out.
Well, as since you mentioned that, I am working on, and we'll have up later tonight, a legible version of the new act as it was passed. It won't be much longer after we finish the show. It's going to take me about another half an hour, and I will get that up. I'll get that on social media. I'm also going to put links up on the front of my main website at paradigmresearchgroup.org, as well as up on the site for the activist initiative we'll be talking about tonight called Shift Storm.
Perfect. Storm. And guys, make sure in the description, guys, I have the link for Stephen Bassett's Twitter as well as the Paradigm Research Group website. Obviously make sure to go check those out. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that Stephen's working on. Where do we stand right now, though, Stephen, in regards to this UAP amendment? I mean, we have time to change things. I've been trying to get straight in my head. I mean, I'm all over Twitter looking around. Where are we at?
Where we're at is that this thing is now, let me put it this way. As Hunter Thompson said once, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. We're having to turn pro, the people in this field, but also the government's gone pro. This now is a fully engaged political thing. It's six years in the works. Started in December of 17, about 3 years, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, people being briefed and meeting people and whatever, and talking amongst themselves in the Capitol cafeterias and restaurants or over drinks at the local pubs, whatever. And then finally, in 2020, legislation was put together, led by Marco Rubio, the chairman of the Intel Committee. They put a modest bill into the 2021 NDAA. The next year, Kirsten Gillibrand put a bill about twice as big into the NDAA. The third year, Mark Shermer, the now chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Senate Intel Committee, with Rubio, ranking member, put a bill into that 2023, twice as big as the 2022. And then came this one. And of course, a lot of things were happening through those years. A lot of things were going on. The whole thing has been marching towards the finish line now for some time. The finish line is in sight. And this bill got serious. In other words, so those that thought maybe they're just putting these bills out and setting up Arrow just to, show that they care, but really they don't care, whatever, they should know now that that bill that was ultimately most of it was the creation of one of the most powerful men in government, Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, and Michael Rounds, who is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. This was a 63 plus page bill, 28 pages in what we'll call a friendly format, which I have linked on all over my social media and elsewhere. But I got to get it up the front of my main site. That essentially established the rest of the final language needed to move forward. Now, what do I mean by move forward? All of this has been about how can the government be properly set up so that when the president finally inevitably discloses the ET presence, that we're the next day or the following Monday, whatever, we're ready to deal with it. Right? The idea that the president will just announce it and go, well, that was great. Now enjoy your life, do good, be well. No.
Right.
That's not the way it's going to go at all. It would be like the president coming out and saying, I'm declaring war on some country. I don't know what's going to happen, but whatever, work it out.
It would be a big deal, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Huge deal.
Yeah.
And so they had to create Arrow. They had to pass legislation. They had to get all kinds of briefings over several years, members of Congress, bring them up to speed. And Lord knows what else they were doing in preparation for disclosure. That's what this has been all about. People that don't know the issue or young, they don't know the history, they may be under the impression that the government's going to finally find out what's going on and tell us. Now, they've known for 70-some years, right? Not only that, they've spent billions of dollars studying it, chronicling it, tracking it. They have bodies, they have tech. The researchers in this field have known that. Some are dead now, but believe me, huge numbers of people who were viewed as crazy, tinfoil hat wearing, bobbleheads, whatever, actually were smart, intelligent people reaching into their own pocket to try to find the truth the government refused to acknowledge. So now they understand that game is over, and they have to get that legislation together. And they've spent 3 years doing a pretty good job. And this last piece was pretty much everything else we needed, meaning the president could disclose thereafter, no problem. However, the president can't do that. The way this has to go down and the way it's been planned is that the most powerful committee in the Congress, in the view of many, if not the most important, is the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence.
Right.
It's the most bipartisan. That very top people in the Senate on both sides are always selected to it. And not surprisingly, it has been the lead on this issue the moment it became, what we'll say, engaged politically starting back in 2020. So this huge bill pretty much was it. But this was the legislation that put everybody in the truth embargo world. Everyone that's been working on these programs or managing the propaganda, servicing the national security, servicing the truth embargo, everybody was put on notice. It's almost game time. Yeah, the game is almost over. They're on the 5-yard line.
Right.
A couple of plays, they're going to score a touchdown, and we are going to have to start providing huge amount of information to the world in an organized process as set up in that bill, the bill that was going to pass. And it's over. Our little secret special world, working in underground facilities, and nobody knows what we're doing, but we're going to go to the stars or whatever else.
Well, Stephen, they went for everybody. They went for everybody. I said they went for everybody with this bill. I mean, that was the thing that really drew my eye. I mean, the DOE, everybody, CIA, FBI, there was no one that I could see that was left off the list, and they really were digging for the whole thing. And that was something that stood out to me so much, where I thought, okay, if this thing is going to get any kind of pushback, now would be the time to try to push the DOE around, you know?
Well, we found out. The eminent domain that declared that all the privately held non-human tech was the government had right to it, could exercise that right. It will, though it did give them a significant amount of time to provide a report, meaning they're sitting on a non-human vehicle in some laboratory out west. They needed to write up a report about that, submit it to the Intel Committee, or submit it through the channels. And if they didn't, obviously they'd be breaking the law, which means they could go to jail. And these people got a great life. They don't want to go to jail. So they did that. They had subpoena power for a number of oversight structures, some involving the Senate, but also one that was going to be appointed by the president, a review board. They would have not only subpoena power, but the bill provided them the highest level classification and access, meaning there is no program in the government that you cannot go and check on.
Well, didn't you worry about that, Stephen? If you don't mind me jumping in, didn't you worry about that a little bit with Kirkpatrick when it comes to Arrow? I mean, I still don't believe that he had every kind of clearance. Like, could he really get to the DOE and look? Because he made a big deal, Stephen, where he talked about, my job's done here. I've been able to look everywhere. I mean, even if he does not lying about that, how does he even know he really got the keys to the kingdom? You know what I mean?
He didn't get the keys to the kingdom.
I don't think he did.
The keys to the kingdom.
I don't think he
knew
did.
He wasn't going to get the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
The Arrow and all whatever infrastructures were created, whatever quote tasks they were given. I think when Moultrie and Bray came forward and spoke to that committee that Andre Carson put together, I think most people, I think, didn't get it. I got it. They didn't have anything to say because they weren't supposed to say anything.
Right.
These structures were being set up for use later, not now. Right. The UAP task force, which became something else, and ended up being the all domain anomalous review. Oh God. Arrow.
Yeah, Arrow. That works.
Review all domain anomaly review organization, association, whatever. I can't. My mind is going.
That's okay.
Whatever the hell. Anyway,
listen, Stephen, they changed the name 15 times, and the other name was bad anyway. So I mean, what are you gonna do? AOI, MSG. What they don't know what they want to be.
So all of this was set up for when the president discloses, not to disclose, not to find anything out, right? So I call it a Potemkin village. It's like those sets that they set up for a movie. They put up what looks like a town, right? But it's just the front part, right? It's just put there to show a town, right? And then the actors come in and they do that. There is no town there. But then, after, in this case, what happens is that as soon as the gun goes off, they will convert this Potemkin village into a real village. So this is the irony and the oddness of all this. It has driven people crazy. Now, I have been talking about this in so many podcast interviews, I have forgotten. But none of the mainstream will touch me with a 10-foot pole. They will not get to me. They will not let me talk about this.
Why?
And I know why.
Why?
Right? I cannot get any shows. I cannot get any coverage in the top end media right now because they know exactly what I'm saying. And the reason is that they are afraid that if the people really knew what was going on, they would get upset. Why? Because the government's been lying to us for 76 years rather, and people are irritated by that, and they want the truth. But in order to get the truth, meaning disclosure, well, in order to get the truth, you have to have the confirmation from the head of state. Otherwise, those doors are not going to open. All right, the truth embargo is not going to end. And so in order to get the truth, you have to get the confirmation. But in order to set the president up for the confirmation, you have to go through all these processes. You've got to set up entities and organizations and protocols and pass lots of legislation. You got to brief dozens of scores of members of Congress. Have them get some classified briefs, classified reports, and so forth. All we've been seeing, you need to get all that out of the way. But while you're doing all that, you can't tell the truth. You can't say, yes, we're setting up Arrow because the president will soon be confirming the extraterrestrial presence, or we're setting up Arrow because we have ET technology. No, you basically have to continue the lie fundamentally while you're servicing ending the lie. This is I forget the word you might call it. It creates cognitive dissonance. It's somewhat of a paradox, but they had no choice. If the lie was on, if it was President Truman, say, setting up a press conference to confirm maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, after Ramey got the crash retrieval debris, and saying, "Look, we've been looking at this and considering it for 3 weeks, but we have decided that this is something the American people need to know about, and so we are informing you that what we captured an actual non-human craft. It was not built, in an American factory,
Right,
and we
right.
crashed. There had some bodies in it that don't resemble anybody you know." If he had done that, people would say, "No problem, no problem. Of course, you took 3 or 4 weeks." But what they have to do now is say, here's the truth we've been lying about for 76 years. This is a huge public relation problem, and so they want everybody to. If they want everybody, they would like, ideally, for everybody to be the villagers, all 330 million villagers who were instructed to and happy to go along with watching the king parading through the town in his new set of clothes that in fact didn't exist, and he's stark naked. And they want all the villagers to not acknowledge that and to just go, "Wow, what a great set of clothes, king, you got." But of course, in the fable, there was one little boy that stood up and said, "The king is naked." Ah, all hell broke loose. That is what they want. Now, look, I'm actually not opposed to that. In other words, I understand the situation they have. I understand they can't be straight up on this, and they've got a lot of limitations on what they can do as they get this all set up to end this embargo, which is what we want.
Stephen, they've had a lot of time to kind of figure this out, though, too. I mean, this is the one part about the bill that is always so tough to me is, why do they need 25 years? I mean, it seems like 5 years would be enough. 20 years is just them kicking the can more. I mean, they know the answers already. They should have had time to put a plan or something into place and get ready for this thing to inform the people. Why do we need to wait 25 more years from them on that?
Because the plan didn't start to come into place until 2017. Up until then, truth embargo was the truth embargo.
Okay,
and if they had started trying to put a plan together in 2000, I don't know,
okay,
10 or 9 or something,
yeah,
that would have gotten out of hand. I mean, if you're going to do that, it's going to spread. You can't. In other words, it was like truth embargo uber all until some point when they realized it was done.
Okay,
and,
I get that.
So up until then, it was the lid was on. So the lid doesn't start to come off the pot until 17, when the To the Stars Academy comes out.
So it's the plan. The plan's holding us up mostly.
So, well, at that point, they needed. At that point, they realized that they were going to probably need to move forward. Now, Mellon and Elizondo, two of their things that they did was to get very much across to the public that things were moving forward, right? And of course, Mellon was his job was to make it clear to the members of Congress and others, maybe in the DOD, this is where things are going, guys. For those of you not paying attention, the truth embargo is going to end pretty soon. So now you got to decide what to do about it. So I'm sure that over the decades, from time to time, I know in Congress it happened, where somebody was going to go around saying, "Look, we need to maybe get this taken care of. Let's get something out." And they were quickly, told, "No, no, just go chill, man. Head on over to, Second D, go to that place over there, get yourself a couple of margaritas and chill out. It ain't going to happen."
Do you feel that they've come up with an idea now? I mean, why do you feel now that they're deciding what's right about now that wasn't right 30 years ago?
All right.
Why are they comfortable to start putting a plan together in 2017 versus
they're not comfortable.
98?
They're not comfortable. I'm not saying they're comfortable.
Okay, I follow you. Okay.
I'm just saying that historians will eventually And there'll be movies and all kinds of stuff. There'll be thousands of books written about all this, going all the way back to 46, tens of thousands of books. As I've said in a number of podcasts, the Civil War lasted 5 years. I think there's 50,000 books have been written about the Civil War. This is about 500 times more important than the Civil War. And so, but it was a truth embargo. So everything was being handled in the secret world. We don't know. We get a little glimpse, whatever. But we have a big picture sense of it. And the way I would put it is this. The reason that ultimately it broke was the consistently growing public awareness of the fact that the phenomena was real and the government was lying. And the polls all show that. I mean, not only in the United States, but around the world. So every year, more people know it's real, and almost certainly extraterrestrial. And then more people know the government's not telling the truth. So that's not helping. In fact, it's clear that it helped in the reduction in trust in government that is now plaguing the country to the point of paralysis and threatening our democracy itself. It didn't help, I assure you. A lie of that magnitude for a couple of months, nah. But you lie like that, bold-faced, to people that are saying, "Well, you know, I had one land in my backyard last week." Oh, no, that was a hologram you saw. Whatever the hell. I mean, it's just embarrassing. The whole thing became like the emperor's new clothes. The emperor is strutting around the village completely naked, but everybody understands that you can't say that, which, you know, for a couple of times. But if the emperor's going to be walking around a village for 76 years and you're having to pretend he's naked while he probably gains a lot of weight, it's ridiculous. And so that was happening. But secondly, the sentiment within not only the political class, but in the military intelligence people was also shifting toward disclosure. And I think that shift started to develop in earnest after the Soviet Union ended. There was some reasonable nuclear reductions, not enough. I mean, we've still got enough to wipe everything out, but still. And I think that it started to shift that way. Now, the world has had plenty of tumults and then in wars and so forth, but again, as time goes by, the sentiment, because because the public awareness, everything that we have access to in the public, the people inside the government has access to. They can read Stanton Friedman, they can read Richard Dolan, they can watch podcasts, right? They can watch.
Well, I'm sure they do. I mean, there's no doubt they do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so the sentiment was shifting internally. And so at some point it reached a kind of critical mass, both inside and outside government, that it's time to end this. And the first move, and they will be well rewarded in history, was by the 10 individuals that attached themselves to the Stars Academy of Arts and Science idea that Tom DeLonge came up, used that as the vehicle to come forward, which was helpful because Tom had the money to put it all together and they didn't want to spend their money. Plus, it was designed to maybe make a lot of money as a public benefit corporation, which was, I think, desirable because I think a lot of them felt that their prospects for government, post-retirement contracts were not going to be improved by coming public in an entity that's basically committed to getting the information out to the world that there's ETs here. And so I get it. And they came out and they did some things for a while, but they came out, but some people thought, well, they're going to wait for the books and they're going to wait for this and that. No. This was just a vehicle. It was a Trojan horse. In that Trojan horse were some very significant people. The four most significant, as far as I'm concerned, were Elizondo, Mellon, Justice, and Gary Nolan. The other ones were not chopped liver, right? But they were more just providing their gravitas and resume. So like a Jim Semivan with a full career at the CIA is providing a substantial gravitas to this. He didn't have to do much. He just has to, be there on the website.
He put his name on there, That was,
put the name on
he's a producer of a movie, essentially, right? He just puts his name on there.
But the key people are what I told. And it was Elizondo and Mellon that carried the water initially. Mellon was the political conduit. And so it took 3 years. I mean, this was not easy. They launched themselves in 2017 as the United States descended into a sort of into a degree of political chaos it had not seen before in the modern era. I don't know about the early 1800s, right? I don't know about Reconstruction. I know that we've had political turmoil in this country, but nothing in the modern era like what we saw starting in 2017. And I include the Nixon situation, I include the McCarthy situation, and so forth. This was really over the top. And so it was crazy. So they're doing what they can do. But they didn't waste too much time, because in only a couple of months, in a little less than 2 months, they had already provided a very significant news story and substantial evidence in the form of gun camera clips to the New York Times. The New York Times published that in December 16, 17, put everything up on the website, where it's now been seen by 1 billion people.
Yeah.
And we were off to the races. And so the starting gun for the final lap of the truth embargo's little race is triggered on December the 16th, 2017. Now we're approaching 6 years. Okay. The first 3 years was a lot of this and that and behind the scenes stuff that ultimately led to the beginning of the political engagement we've never had. And that is the beginning of actual creation of legislation that would address how this is all going to go.
Do you feel like this is the beginning of the climax of this, though? I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, I've looked into this. I started listening to Art Bell as a kid with my dad. I've looked into this stuff forever, Stephen. Do you feel like we're kind of reaching the apex point here of this kind of TTSA era, though? I mean, that's what it feels like to me. I mean, with the bill getting chopped up the way that it has, it's been very disappointing for someone like me.
If you're looking at one thing, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you look at the bigger picture, it's not so bad, and that's what I'm here to tell you. All right, and so the legislation process moved forward for 3 consecutive years, defining, refining, and of course, during that time, the media coverage was enormous. Thousands of articles have been written. The public awareness worldwide grew, shot up, optimism shot up, the activist movement was enhanced, social media embraced it even more. And then, of course, it really started riding the podcast revolution, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing great. Moving forward. Would I like it to have been faster? Yeah. But when the bill, when the bill was being put together by Rubio and his people, that was eventually passed in December of 2020, while they were doing that, we were going through the worst pandemic since 1917. Millions of people were dying. Millions more were getting sick. Economies were being slammed. The world was in chaos. So, hey, they went through and they got it, and they go into 2021 and they start trying to put more legislation together. The pandemic's still going on, right? The film industry is getting decimated, and more rescue bills had to be passed. The economies were taking hits. Inflation was beginning. There was a lot of an enormous political turmoil. I think that's a given. We understand that never stopped, and yet they still managed to get it together and pass it in 2022.
They were motivated, without a doubt. There was definite motivation for sure.
And then in 2023, they start putting together the 2022 bill. It was put together in 2020. Now in 2022, they're putting together the 2023 bill. And what's happening in 2022? Well, Putin decides he's going to reform the Soviet Union and become, the Tsar Nicholas II. A massive war starts and people are being slaughtered, and officials in many entities and institutions are going public with immediate concerns. This is as close to nuclear war we've ever been. A nuclear event could occur in the Ukraine at any time. So that's what was going on in 2022. And so, but they got it passed. And then comes 2023. The war is still going on. The pandemic is somewhat subsiding. All right. And they're moving forward. There's still plenty of problems out there. And as the bill was submitted in early July, but after something else happened that wasn't like plagues and tsunamis and wars and stuff. It was tremendously disruptive, to quote the process, and that was the emergence of Major David Grush. But while that was disruptive, unlike these other things, it actually sped things up. It didn't slow things down, it sped things up. And ultimately it's going to work out just fine. And Major Grush is going to be treated as a hero by historians and even perhaps rewarded by our government. And so all of this is what led to, quote, now, right? It was it a special date? No. It is the cumulative outcome of 76 years of the engagement of this issue by our government, the American people, and the world. It's like a dam that was made 76 years ago, and it's being sort of maintained, right? But there's people constantly going up and popping it with hammers and stuff, chipping away at it, right? Because they don't like that dam. And so one day the dam starts to break. Why? Because it reached the breaking point. All right. So that's what now means. The truth embargo reached the breaking point in 17. It is coming apart, and very soon it's about to completely collapse. And so I recommend people getting to high ground, which translated into the processes underway is getting your public relations program together. All right. Because you're going to need every bit of it. And so to close out what I was saying before,
Sure.
I'm not getting calls from any high-end media, but I'm doing podcasts faster than I can schedule them. I'm doing 1.5 a day. I'll probably do 40 by the end of the year. I've already done 40 more because the podcasters, they don't have this problem. This is public journalism. This is citizen journalism. But CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, New York Times, they have a problem. What is the problem?
It's a
They
controlled
don't
deal.
want somebody coming on and saying that what is happening now is not what it seems, that it's not about finding out what this is. It's about setting up the president to disclose and having all the apparati in place to deal with what comes afterwards. That would be the truth. And so the question I might be asked is, Steve, why are you so hell-bent on telling the world the truth here when you know it's going to it could screw the process up, right? It could upset it. No, for one thing, if I were to scream it from the mountaintops or get on CNN tomorrow and explain this, what the media doesn't understand is the people will be quite happy. They will be very pleased in most cases, and here is why. And this is something they don't get, but hey, they've been operating under the truth embargo since they existed. Is that, look, we have a process in which we're trying to end a 73-year lie that's probably the most egregious misrepresentation of reality in human history, with the implications for the human race almost incalculable, right? As opposed to if we had acknowledged it back in 1948 or 53.
Yeah, maybe. I still wonder, Stephen, if it's a creation issue. I mean, I still think at the same time, I think a lot of people will be okay with it. But I think when you start to get into the possibilities for creation stories, maybe one religion winning out or one not, it's kind of hard to sell that to the Middle East. You know what I mean? They don't.
We're not talking about selling anything. We're talking about the process leading to disclosure. What's going on right now?
I follow what you're saying. I follow what you're saying. Okay.
The point that I'm saying is that we're trying to get out from. They're trying to get out from under a lie of 73 years. And they need this, and they know where it's going. The president's going to have to disclose if somebody else doesn't, some other head of state. And the moment that happens, they need all of this stuff, right? Can you imagine the president just getting up one day, say 15 years ago, off the wrong side of the bed and just saying, hell with it, going out in the East Room and saying, telling the press, yeah, we're not alone. We've got ET tech, and then going back to bed. The next day, all hell breaks loose. What do they got? They got Arrow? No. Nobody's got even a sense that it's coming. Do they have any legislation? No. And so you have insanity. So they need to set this up, right? But they can't tell you why or acknowledge the ET presence. They have to be very careful what they say. They don't want to use the word extraterrestrial. We help them with UAP, so they'd have to say UFO. They have to essentially be it is a mendacious process in which they are essentially lying their way out from under an even bigger lie. Okay, and that's the message that I'm giving every chance I get. And what the mainstream media, God bless them, who have screwed this issue up for 7 decades, and ain't gonna, they want to give me any crap, they can go ahead. I just
Oh,
grab
oh,
and throw
oh,
it right back in their
oh,
face.
you mean playing the X-Files music doesn't help? You're kidding
Whatever
me.
the hell they want to do, don't do it with me. So, but what they don't understand is that this is necessary, right? And it's understandable why they have to stay kind of between some lines here in order for it to move forward. I mean, if Mellon had rushed up on the Hill back in 2020 and saying, I've got 15 contactees with me, I want to see a member of Congress. We're going to tell them all about the fact that the ETs are creating hybrid children. Oh, yeah. We need some hearings on that. We need hearings on the hybridization process. Where do you think that was going to go? All right.
You're
So
a plan would help. Yes, a plan would definitely help.
Okay. Yeah. And so, but what is good about what I'm doing, I like to think, is that I'm basically saying, folks, it is not what it seems. They're having to misrepresent, and they're having to stay between certain lines for this higher purpose. And by knowing that, by my letting you know that, it gives it more authenticity. In other words, they understand why they're doing it this way. They understand why they can't be straightforward with the truth until disclosure does take place, and they can be straightforward with the truth, so it is more authentic. Because for any person that actually believes what the hell is going on right now is what it's supposed to be, when disclosure comes, what they're going to learn is we've been lying to you about the truth embargo all of these decades. We lied to you about what we were doing with the arrow and setting up all that stuff and the legislation. We lied about, did not tell you the truth about that. In other words, the very act of finally getting the truth was a big lie, and these people are discovering that for the first time. All that does is make the authenticity even less. And the trust level in the United States on the government is so bad.
It is.
That people can't go, a day without going on CNN or MSNBC or somebody and saying our democracy is in danger. Our democracy is we're going to lose it. Blah blah blah. And so I'm saying, look, CNN, MSNBC, look, let them know. Say, look, they can't be straight with you right now. They're having to play a certain game. They're having to do it within certain rules so that we can get to where we have to go, which is the hearings, of course, where we'll get lots of truth from the witnesses, and then of course the confirmation from the president. That is what makes this so tricky. And I will do my best to try to explain this to people so they get it, but not everybody's going to get it. Okay, so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we were talking about. We had Grant Cameron on last week, and I know you're good friends with Grant, and his idea is the same idea where the president is a tough situation. I do think he's right that where you can't have him talk about it because he has to know about it. If he looks like he's stupid about it, it's a bad deal. It doesn't look good for him. I tend to agree with that. Maybe that's why the president hasn't talked about it as much. Because that's my question to you. Like, why do you feel that? Why hasn't Biden talked more about this situation? Why are we not really hearing? He's such a big part of it. He's such a big part of it.
Let me shock your viewers.
Yeah.
Look, every single president has known about the ET president.
Probably, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And a lot of other big shots have known about it. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos.
You think Elon's been tapped?
The Rockefellers, the Koch brothers. And people say, well, how do you know that? How do you know that? I mean, do you meet them? Do you hang out with them? Do you have dinner with them?
Yeah.
No, it's simple common sense. And by the way, one of the ways the truth embargo has been able to succeed is by stripping common sense out of everything it can. Just take it completely and throw it out the window. So when Haynes gets up and gives that press conference in '97 over at the Pentagon and says, yeah, the crash test dummies is what you saw in '52, but you conflated them with those things you saw in '47. You see? They just strip common sense. It is, again, the emperor's new clothes. Can't you see those beautiful clothes on that rotund emperor that we have? Don't you see them? Oh, man. Okay, so, look. All the presidents have known. When you are the most powerful person in the world, certainly the most powerful person in the country, or you're worth 50, 100, $150 billion, The line outside your office of people dying to tell you things like that is very, very long. In other words, the CIA doesn't have to set up a 500 slide PowerPoint present, bring you over, show you vehicles and bodies and everything. No, and they're not going to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if they show them everything, right? They change
They
that every 4 to 8
don't show them
years.
hardly anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. That makes sense.
I'm simply saying that they know.
They're
They
aware,
don't have
yeah.
to find out from the CIA or the DOD.
Okay,
They're
yeah.
tipped off by the undersecretary to the undersecretary to the undersecretary for hors d'oeuvres because he had too many drinks at a luncheon, or somebody that is they know or friends of them that have connections and will tip them off and say, Mr. President, you understand that the ET presence is real. And the president says, yeah, I read Stanton Friedman. Okay. And so, but we really can't engage it now. It's hugely national security. It's been embargoed for a very long time. And so I would recommend not engaging it. Just let the DOD handle it until such time as it's ready. And the presidents, I think, have all gone, okay, I'm fine with that. I don't want to go there. If you're talking going there and during the Cold War, when the nukes are all set and ready to go, and everybody's thinking they're going to be blown up tomorrow, and you're going to come forward and say, I'm kind of like, I've been told and tipped off that we've actually got ETs and stuff here, and I'm going to start looking into that, and I'll get back to you. No way.
It's not until after, right? It's not until after. Barack talked about it after. Obviously, Clinton talked a lot about it after. Made at least mentions of it. It always seems like after the presidency, they're okay with speaking a little bit more on it. It's strange.
Well, she was never president. She talked about it during the campaign.
No, Bill, not Hillary.
Bill. Barely talked about it. He talked about it a little bit before her campaign. He did not talk about it at all before, but they know, right? And the question is that they choose not to do anything about it. The only president that may have truly, seriously considered doing something about it, as opposed to, no problem, I get it, I'm sure they're here, I'll let my boys over at the Pentagon and the CIA take care of it. Their evidence is not large, it's modest, but it is not, you can't dismiss it. And that is a man who had vision, he had the intellect and the vision to see a larger, different world. And actually maybe try to lead people to there, like Martin Luther King had the vision to see what was on the other side of the mountain. I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen what's on the other side. One day you will as well. And that was John Kennedy. And as we know, the evidence points that he was definitely mulling this over. He was feeling it out. He may have seen it as the way to end the nuclear arms race, which any reasonable person knows is eventually going to destroy us. It's going to end our civilization, and I think he saw that, and I think he was starting to look into it in a way. That's the only one. Now, was he killed because of that? I don't know. There was probably 40 different groups that wanted him dead.
Probably, yeah.
So who knows? But other than that, no president has had either the vision or the willingness to do it, but have all known it's true. And that includes Elon Musk, who has several times said, I don't think so. I don't know. I think he said if it was here, I'd know about it.
Yeah.
Well, Elon is not the most mature multi-billionaire we have, but let's just say that if you are trying to build private starships, if you're trying to put thousands of satellites in the sky to do cool things, which is fine, it's great business and whatever, you need the cooperation of the United States. It's not like you can just do it, right? Yeah, I'm putting up 1,000 satellites, but don't. No, you have to have the cooperation of the United States. And if Elon were to do what Gary Nolan has done, or what Robert Bigelow has done, or what astronaut Edgar Mitchell has done, which is go right in front of a camera, including news cameras, and say, there's an extraterrestrial presence here, that cooperation he needs for his, SpaceX and his satellite program might suddenly evaporate. And so one day Elon's going to have to answer about that, meaning, well, actually, I did know, but I couldn't say because it would have affected my work. And people go, okay, fine, that's great, no problem.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It makes sense. It's very weird that he always denies it. When he denies it, though, Stephen, it's always very short. He 1-2 sentences it and kind of leaves it alone.
You
And
didn't want
that's
to talk about it.
no, I agree with you. It's very weird how quickly he just shutters it off every single time. And I'd imagine, if he's going to be flying rockets around, like you're saying, he's got satellites, he's going to see stuff. They would have to tap his shoulders somehow.
It's not about seeing stuff. He's been tipped off. He's been told.
Oh, okay.
Right?
You think he's been briefed?
Money.
So you think he's been briefed?
I don't mean briefed by the government. I'm saying when you have that kind of money, somebody is going to tip you off. Somebody who has the knowledge.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Whoever they are, inside the government, outside the government, the King of England, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's the Queen of England, mostly. Well, it's a king now, who, by the way, has a substantial interest in UFOs, King Charles, as did Philip.
That's
Point
cool.
is, they take you aside at a cocktail party and say, look, President, Obama, President, whatever, and the ET thing is real. And probably the answer would be, yeah, I know, meaning already been tipped off. Because you have information that could be useful to them, you are going to tip them off. Why people don't get this, I do not know. This idea that people of enormous power are just going through life completely oblivious to stuff, I don't know what's going on, and nobody's going to come up and help them, when helping somebody like that could give you unbelievable opportunities as well as wealth. I mean, this, again, common sense, right? I try to use common sense. It's a really cool thing. People should do it more often. And so Biden knows there's an ET presence. He also knows how big this issue is. He also knows that this is a nonpartisan issue. And to politicize this issue would be a huge mistake. And by the way, in all of the time that I have been following this, which is just 26 years, but I don't think it's happened before I got involved. There has never been a deliberate politicization of this issue, ever, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I read the UAP amendment, it's incredible. I sat there at my computer and I was thinking, it's so insane after all these years to be reading this right now. What's available? You have, but like, it's there, right? Like, they're working on it, but until you really look at the writing and you think, sure, all these senators, these House people, all the Congress, they're really looking at this stuff. They're saying, hey, DOE, we're going to come knock on the door. We want the documents.
They certainly brought the DOE into the deal, which was a big deal.
It's huge.
That was special territory, because there is a consensus amongst a lot of researchers, the citizen researchers, that the DOD is where they parked all the programs, or most of the programs. But the point I was making is that it has always been a nonpartisan issue. The very first time it was made partisan, as near as I can tell, was just a few days ago.
Right.
When Schumer, who had written, provided that he's the main sponsor behind that 50 additional pages in the bill that went in to make that bill what it was, when he came forward and said this bill is under attack because of Republicans who are opposed to this bill. It is under attack by Republicans. It's the first time. Now, you have to believe what the message that I got from that is that for Chuck Schumer to do that, for him to cross over into politics on this issue, he must have had a very good reason. And I think the reason is he knows how important this bill is, not just because he helped create it or sponsored it. He knows that this bill was absolutely essential to completing the pre-disclosure setup that would lead to the president finally disclosing. That has to happen after hearings, of course, but still. And he knew that if it got really gutted, then it was going to be a setback, and they're kind of on a time frame. I believe they do want to get this done sooner than later. And so he decided to raise the partisan flag. I don't think it made any difference, but maybe it did, because as I read through the new bill, there's a lot there. They've rewritten stuff, they've renamed stuff, they've taken some things out, sure, but there's still a lot there. It just isn't as crisp and as strong as the previous bill.
Can I jump in real quick? Can I ask you your opinion? I mean, where in the bill, I don't see the description of the government offices anymore in the new legislation. is that somewhere still in the NDA where it says all of those agencies and it describes that, or are they just being overall, or how's because I don't see them label that out anymore.
I'm still I'm still converting the bill
Okay.
into readable form. Now, I haven't done a strict comparison. Once I do, I will do a strict comparison and invite other people to do that. Some of the previous bill was redundant to pass law. They were repeating things that were already in legislation. But I'm sure that there are various things that are not there. It was written by other people, but one thing is clear: some of them would have loved the bill to be pulled completely, but the fee pushback and the public response was pretty vigorous, and so they abandoned that, and then they essentially went for rewriting it in ways that kind of weakened it here, a little there, some trapdoor outs and stuff like that. But overall, a lot of the stuff that we is useful is there, all right, but certain key things are not, and that's where it gets telling. And that's one of the advantages of the Schumer maneuver. The initial response we heard was from government contractors, and they wanted to go after eminent domain. Well, we know why. They have been sitting on that tech and working on it for decades without really able to monetize it. They were paid by the government, God knows how many billions of dollars to do the work, but we're talking about technological breakthroughs that could make them billions, if not trillions of dollars. But they couldn't go out and do it. They couldn't go out and set a company. They couldn't be Elon Musk because until the truth is embargo is over, it is all still internal and classified. And so they felt that all that patience and work needed to get a payoff. And eminent domain implied there would be no payoff. Now, that is actually not true. The government could have declared eminent domain. It could have taken a bunch of tech into government control. And then consider what to do with it. And they might have come back and made deals with some of these companies to develop it. But in that circumstance, hopefully, and what the people would expect is those deals would significantly serve the public good and not simply the shareholders of Lockheed Martin. All right, which is how capitalism works. They will make every dime they can for their shareholders if that means laying waste to whole communities, whole forests, the ocean itself,
Yeah, right,
bringing
right.
down the heavens.
Yeah.
It's unregulated extreme capitalism, which is where America is, and that needs, amongst several 100,000 other things, needs to be reformed. But we don't reform anything anymore. We don't fix anything anymore. We're basically just riding a bicycle to hell. But again, that could change. So he puts this bill out, and what he did is he forced them out of cover for the first time. The inside people have been pretty much staying out of this. The legislation was not a particular threat to them. Grush's testimony was, I mean, obviously, I mean, when he testified that a couple of inside USAP people had told him that we got a bunch of craft and bodies. I know a lot of the government contractors spit their coffee out right then, and so so right away. But that's Grush, right? That's not Schumer. Now, so they were pretty much okay, impenetrable. Schumer comes in, backs up Grush, declares eminent domain, creates a presidential, well, an appointed White House review board, and gives a number of entities within the Congress and the review board fully classified levels to access any program as well as subpoena power. And from that point of view of the defense contractors, that was like, oh, no way in hell. And so they push back.
Yeah, there's nowhere to run at that point. There's not really anywhere to run.
Well, they knew the jig could be up. So in order to, they had to come out of cover to fight it, right? It's like in Vietnam, we'd throw smoke grenades into the heavy holes, so the guys would have to come out and then we'd shoot them. So in any event, the point is that they had to come out of cover. Now, did they all go up on Capitol Hill by name? No. What they did is they went to intermediaries, who then went to the members of Congress that they know are receiving millions of dollars of campaign funds from the defense contractors, and they are okay. Many, not including Democrats, but not surprisingly, the majority of campaign donations are to the Republicans. So they went to the Republicans receiving big bucks from the defense contractors to either influence the conferees, or maybe in some cases they went directly to the conferees and said, look, pull that bill, pull that bill. Okay. And so we got wind of that, but there was more to it, because the fact that there was pushback on the bill meant that those people who didn't have a commercial interest, in other words, it wasn't about money, those people in government that felt that the truth embargo should last until the end of time, it should never end, certainly not in their lifetime, and that it was an abomination that that information should ever get in the public hands, because the public don't have the right to know it, they don't have the need to know it, and they'll all go freaking crazy if they learn about it. And so they piled on. One of the things that guaranteed we were going to get significant pushback or changes was when we learned that Mitch McConnell had jumped in. So McConnell starts putting pressure on members of the Senate. Fine, but he doesn't control the Senate. But the House is controlled by Republicans. So he reached down and started communicating with Turner and Rogers, and even Mike Johnson, the three Miketeers, I like to call them. And apparently getting some sort of sense that, yeah. If we can't get what we want, we're not going to pass the bill, right? We won't pass the NDA. That gave them pretty big leverage, all right? And so when it's all said and done, we got this bill, which was far more substantive than I thought it might be, definitely more vulnerable than the other one, and it eliminated all of the real threats, or at least immediate threats, to the what we'll call the truth, the managers and the beneficiaries of the truth embargo. So what's going to happen next is this. The bill's not too awful. Good. The bill does not prevent the Senate from holding hearings. No way. Good. The Senate Intel Committee can hold hearings in January. Nothing to stop it. They have been briefed up the yin yang. They've gotten classified reports. They know a great deal about what's going on, and there's witnesses banging on the door ready to testify. They could put 50 witnesses up, but they only need about 12, 14, 15 that will just rock people's world, and they are there, and they hold those hearings. Then the president, who has deliberately stayed out of this, because that would completely politicize it, and that's what you don't want to do.
It's interesting, yeah.
Will then be able to passively engage it. Not like Clinton was asked to do by Lawrence Rockefeller, go pound on the Department of Defense's doors until they give you the UFO files. That wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
He'll come forward very shortly after the hearings are completed. Not that there won't be more hearings, but there are going to be hearings going to go on for a year, 2 years, God knows. But he can come forward and say, look, I've watched them, and my people have watched them. I've talked it over with the top national security people that watch them. And yeah, our consensus is that we are not alone. We have the ET tech, we have ET bodies, and boy, I'm sure you want to know about that, and we're going to get on that right away. Disclosure. It's happened in that instant. That's disclosure. That's what I've been talking about for 20 some years. That is disclosure. That's the confirmation we are in the post-disclosure world. And one of the very first things that is probably going to happen in the post-disclosure world is that the initial UAP Disclosure Act will likely be introduced as a standalone bill.
Oh, so they're coming from another direction with it.
Well, it'll be post-disclosure.
Yeah.
The whole world will know the ETs, in fact, are here. They are real. And they're going to try to put this bill in, which is going to help get that information out. And the chances of what are the defense contractors going to do then? That thing will pass right through the Senate and the House, and we'll get it anyway. And we'll get it pretty quickly, and so not much has been lost. Now, will it completely supplant the bill that's in there now? Probably, because the bill that's in there now is not written well. That thing was tight, all right? And so we can have it just like that. That's how close we are. So I'm an activist. Sometimes I'm operating here, and then sometimes I'm operating there. I'm doing whatever makes sense at the time and what money I have to do it with, which is usually virtually nothing. Though I am going to be a nonprofit 501c3 pretty soon, and I can go out and like, Avi Loeb, get 100, whatever he got. I forget what it was. 50 million, 8 million, $2 million, tax-free, and tax-free, tax deductible. Anyway, so I launched a couple of days ago an activist effort to help wrap this up, and I have called it the Shift Storm. shift storm. It's very important to get that F in there, okay? And essentially, what it is, it's a tweet storm with benefits, right? With some extras. I've done a tweet storm before. I conducted a tweet storm with a group of several social media groups when I was about to submit the full record of the citizen hearing on disclosure to all 535 offices back in 2014. I believe we generated between 2 and 3 million tweets going out to all the office, all 535. Okay. Yeah, we irritated them. Yeah, a lot of people got blocked. Yeah, so what? The tweets were letting them know that the citizen hearing DVD record was coming, and that they should, read it. I mean, not read it, watch it, whatever. And it was all preparation to something else. It was all lead up to the presidential campaign. So that's called a tweet storm. This is a tweet storm of sorts, but it's different in several ways. One, we're not targeting all 535 offices. We're targeting just 3. Okay? So all of the tweets are going to just 3 offices. Okay? All the messages are going to 3 offices.
Right.
And the second thing that's interesting is that we're not targeting these 3 offices because they're the bad guys and we're going to just yell and scream and tell them how awful they are until they finally give in.
Right.
These are the good guys. They're heroes in this. And all we're doing is saying, look, bill didn't get through, a little disappointing. However, you can hold hearings in September and get this done. You can hold the hearings we must have in the Senate Intel Committee. And these 3 heroes are, of course, Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Mark Warren, and Senator Marco Rubio. And the way the shift storm works, and by the way, if you want to join in, it's at shiftstorm.org. Don't forget the F.
I'll put that in the description for after, so everybody can click on it.
It's all there. So here is the goal. It's pretty straightforward. We want to put 100,000 tagged Twitter messages. It's tweet and Twitter with me, folks. It's never going to be X. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Happen, all right? Yeah. 100,000 tagged Twitter messages in the notification box of all 3 of their Twitter accounts, and they all have Twitter accounts. Every member of Congress, save for about 2, has Twitter accounts. They don't have DMs, but they have Twitter accounts that they post stuff on, and they have, of course, a notifications page. The notifications box. The notifications box is filled up with that stuff that refers to you. It has your handle on it. So if I post a message at Senator Schumer, Senator, you really tried hard to get that bill in. It's been changed. That's too bad. However, we need those hearings in January more than ever. Please hold a hearing for the witnesses, the big time witnesses, in front of the Senate Intel Committee in January. And because it was at Schumer, that goes right into his notifications box, and these are monitored by staffers.
Yeah.
The reason they do that is because notifications, if people are on Twitter, know exactly what I'm talking about. Notifications are how a staffer can go and see what's being said about their boss in Twitter, right? Because if people, are saying this or that, they not everything, but without the handle, they don't see it, but they can get an idea what's going on, and they want to know that. And so they see something notable, they're going to mention it to their boss. So if 10, 15, 20, 50, 60, 100,000 Twitter tagged Twitter messages tagged to the senator's handle suddenly start filling up that notifications box, whether the member is in Washington or back home, for the holidays, they're gonna look at, and they're gonna call them up and say, there's something going on out there. You probably should check on it. And so the member, Senator Schumer, Warner, will then go to the notifications and just click on it, and then they'll just see this thing scrolling down. Thousands of these messages scrolling down saying, we want hearings, we want hearings, we want hearings, we want the hearings in January. All 3 will be seeing that. That is what Twitter tagging is. And so the goal is 100,000 tagged messages to Senator Schumer, Senator Warner, and Senator Rubio. Secondly, they have email forms. Virtually no members of Congress give out their email address. I do,
I can
but I
imagine.
also have a form, right?
Right.
But if you're a member of Congress, you have a form. And so what it is, it's a form. You know what I'm talking about. You fill it out,
Yeah,
put
I
the
know. I
message
sent you
in,
one. Yeah.
yeah, and then you click, and it sends it to them. And what it
Right.
sends to them is an email, and
Yeah.
the email turns up in the staffer's email box. All right, and so 100,000 of those will be noticed by the if they follow the protocols that I have put forward, they will be noticed, and they will go, holy mackerel. And so they will then ask the member, check the email box, right? So the member goes, and here they are,
Right. Right.
100,000, all saying we want
Yeah.
hearings in January, in January, in January, in January. 600,000. That's all I want. Now, let me be clear. The power of social media is vastly greater than almost anybody thinks. Whatever you ask, if you just talk to just a random person, I assure you, the power of the internet is 10, 20, 50, 100 times greater than they think it is.
Sure.
And I get that. All right. That is why there are some K-pop songs out there that have now had 3 billion views, listeners, or 3 billion, whatever, listeners. That is why there are 16-year-olds on TikTok who are called influencers, because they've got 4 million followers. And if they just mention a brand of peanut butter, the shell's empty.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So one TikTok influencer picks up on this, who's happened to be into the ET issue and wants to see the truth, pops it up on their TikTok feed. We could do 1 million tags and 1 million emails. Now that will, and the tagging is unlimited, right? But the email boxes might end up using up the space, and they're going to have to get more space for their email. Of course, they can delete. I mean, they'll delete them, right? And they'll tell
Probably.
them,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I deleted 50,000 of them, Senator. Okay, fine, but sir, 50,000 more turned up, right? I mean, the point is, the message is very clear, and so we could do 1 million. That's how powerful the internet is. But most issues you can't even think in those terms. Not this issue.
Well, I
See,
mean,
Twitter.
yeah, you got to look at it this way. I mean, you probably don't know this video game, but for instance, they could put out a new trailer for the Grand Theft Auto 6 game, and YouTube it had 100 million views in the first day. So I mean, yeah, I mean, the internet's definitely powerful, without a doubt. Yeah.
If people are interested, if
Yeah.
it
Oh, of
means
course.
something. Okay. Well, this issue is worldwide known. Now, I believe anybody in the world that has access to Twitter can tag Twitter tag. So messages are going to be coming from all over the world. In terms of email, I think it's also pretty much the same. I don't think that the senator's email requires that you be a resident of the state that they represent. I know that is true of the members of Congress by law. In order for them to receive an email from you, you have to be a resident of their district. I don't think that's the case for the senators. But if it should be, well, it's what John Lewis called a little good trouble. Go online, find an address in that state, and send it in with a phony name. Make up a phony email. What the hell it is? Just send it. Get the message in. Okay, it's all right. It's not a bad thing. It's not. You're not going to go to jail.
I hear
And
you. I
so
hear you.
that is the shift storm. Now the protocols are there's a number of them that I'm listing, and they're important. Remember that these are the good guys. These are the ones who've been trying to get the truth. They want the truth embargo done. They want that law passed. So don't yell and scream. Don't be nasty. You want to be nice. You want to be respectful. So you want to simply say, "Look, we appreciate what you're doing now, but and that bill is not as much as we wanted, but it's something. But why not? We need our hearings. We want disclosure when we need those hearings, and we need them in January. And so you're respectful, you're polite, no epithets, that kind of thing. But you're serious, you're firm, you're strong, right? No jokes, okay? And it's also the case that I did mention that I have no desire to rain phone calls down on these offices. That is not part of the shift storm. But if you go to their website, so I'm not posting the number. If you go to their website and you get the number, you want to make a call, make a call. All right. And when you do, don't say I need to speak to the senator or the chief of staff or the top legislative aide. Just leave the nice short message with the nice person, the intern is manning the phone.
Yeah.
Right? Just leave it. If they get 50 or 60 of those, they note that. But we don't want to disrupt the actual functioning of that office. Twitter tags and emails do not do that. Phone calls do. So that is the essence of the Twitter storm. The only thing I've added, and you will find on the website when you go to Twitter storm, ShiftStorm, and when you go to shiftstorm.org, don't forget the F, is that in addition to the 5 senators, which include Schumer, Warner, Rubio, Rounds, and Gillibrand, there are 3 people in the House who are also heroes in the saga that have actually held a hearing. The first one since 1968. They tried to get some legislation into the House bill as when they learned that the Senate bill could get completely removed or something. They tried to get some language in. God bless them. I don't know if it's still in the House bill. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, whatever. And they've publicly stated they want disclosure, and they're trying to do the best they can. They don't have the power that the Senate Intel, the senators in the Senate Intel Committee or the Senate Majority Leader. They don't have that kind of power, but they're kicking up some serious dust. And the 3 that are most notable are Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, and Nancy Mace, whose district escapes me right now. And so they're not in the Twitters, the shift storm. I don't want them to be buried in messages. But I'm suggesting that, look, if you want to send in a tag tweet or a nice little email to them, right? I put that up in their form, and I even put up their phone number in this case. And if you want to drop them a nice call, just thanking them for what they're doing, go ahead. Right?
But I would have liked for Burchett to get Title 50 in that bill, though. I wanted to call him and say, hey, with his amendment, his version, those are the things, you know what I'm saying, Stephen? Like, there's things that I want from them to pay a bit more attention to. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to push something like that forward, we need to look at the original Schumer amendment and say what was really powerful here. Obviously, they wanted to give like a secondary and alternative look at it, but there's still those things that they could have added, right?
Guess what? When it comes to legislation of the United States of America, getting what you want is not a good place to start from.
Trust me, I know. Like, from the government, it's almost impossible. It seems like.
Well, let me put it this way: this is incredibly complex, implicative legislation.
Sure,
there are matters so much trivialer than that have gone on for decades and can't get resolved. So believe me, what we're seeing in what amounts to now what will soon be 4 consecutive years of UAP legislation, when prior to that there had never been a single piece of legislation ever on the UAP issue. Believe me, it's a huge win for us. To put in perspective, the extreme case of the United States government, so the political process, and it's the fact that it's slow and sometimes completely impregnable, is that I love telling this. It for some time now, it costs more to make a penny than a penny, right? But we keep making them.
Yeah.
The total weight of the amount of pennies out there is some thousands of tons. I forget what it is, and they slow down commerce, waste our time, whatever. They're a total drag. Many countries have eliminated the penny, and they round to the nickel. Over the last 30 or 40 years, there have been repeated efforts to get rid of the penny and save a lot of time and money, and we'll say money because it costs more to make one than that, and also just make the life of the American people easier. And every single attempt has failed because of filibusters and or other maneuvers by 2 senators. It didn't matter what year, didn't matter what senators, but there were 2 senators. Can you imagine what senators have been blocking getting rid of the penny for decades? Can you take a wild guess?
You tell me.
That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, I'm an old guy. We studied history a little bit. Plus, I've been around a long time. The gentleman on the penny is a gentleman by the name of Lincoln.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Lincoln spent a lot of time in Illinois.
Right.
And so the Illinois senators have always and every time blocked getting rid of the penny.
That's interesting.
And you just take that concept and just expand it out, and you have the United States government. And why it could be like one of those democracies of old.
Pettiness runs deep, huh? Pettiness runs deep.
Yeah, they last for a certain length of time, and then they're gone. And then a tyrant comes in, and maybe another one pops up 500 years later. So we need to fix stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway.
If you let me jump in real quick, Stephen, we usually go to about an hour and a half. We're at about an hour 15. We can go a little bit longer if you want.
A little longer, yeah.
Yeah, but if you don't, yeah, no, I follow you. That's why I kind of wanted to jump to this point here. You've always kind of been, I think I've heard you say at one point in time that you're more of an environmentalist, and that's really kind of why you've got into this topic.
No.
Am I wrong about that?
No, I think you heard something and you flipped it, but it's okay.
Okay.
No, what I have said is that I am basically an anti-war activist.
Oh yeah, excuse me, anti-war. Yes, excuse me, not environmental.
A disclosure advocate. Yeah.
Yes, correct. That's right. Yeah. But my question is do you feel that this is the technology that can really kind of end all of that? I mean, if we see the power of what's going on, we can kind of maybe come together a bit more and stop this nuclear potential. I mean, is that really where your hopes lie? More than just getting the technology for, having breakfast in France and then going to having Japan lunch? Is it more about just the denuclearization of the world?
It is. Well, it's actually all that combined under one aegis, and that is we the beginning of the 20th century, and I need to confirm this, I think the population was about a little under 2 billion around 2020 or 1920, 1900 rather, 1900. No, yeah, 1900. And over the next 123 years, we have had several hundred wars, many instances of vast genocide, and hundreds of millions of people have been slaughtered. And in spite of that, the population doubled and doubled again and doubled again, and now we have 8 billion people. Okay, not a problem. 8 billion people is not necessarily a problem as long as all of them have food, water, clothing, and shelter. But if they don't, that's a problem. All right? And then 8 billion people, well, that's a whole lot of waste, a whole lot of trash, a whole lot of social pressure. And so if you're not dealing with that, that's going to be a big problem. And then these 8 billion people live in 200 countries and sovereign territories, 200. And every one of them, most of them are armed, and most of them have experience in conducting war against other sovereign territories. So you take 800 million people, you spend so much money on other shit that they can't find food, clothing, health, and shelter. Oh. And they're living squalor. Eventually, things are going to go to hell. And then when you factor in the weaponization of all tech, right, to the point where you now have nuclear weapons capable of essentially ending civilization and sending it back hundreds of years and killing probably at least half the world's population, probably about 4 billion, but it could be more. It just depends on how things go. You're in deep doo-doo. Deep doo-doo. When the oceans are filling up with so much plastic that at the rate they're filling up, you could walk from San Francisco to Japan. That's not good. And so the fact is that we are way, way over the line on a range of things. You keep hearing about tipping points. And one of the things I keep noticing when I read about it is they keep adding more tipping points. There's so many tipping points, you can't keep up with them.
Yeah.
In other words, we're basically pretty much on the road to hell.
I agree with you. The world seems like it's never been this crap. I mean, I'm 33. And you got a little bit more time than me, but for me, it seems like this is one of the craziest times that humanity's ever seen. I agree.
It's well, again, at the turn of the century, at the turn of the last century, 1900, We had the Roaring Twenties, had a lot of good things happening. The population was low. Technology was starting to really take off. And so if we had had the wisdom to say, look, let's just don't breed people just to breed people. But one of the problems is that under the old kind of way of thinking, that one of the ways that a nation can protect itself against other nations is breeding lots of people, right? More people, more people, more people. That means more people in the army and so forth. And it was part of protection, defense. But if we sort of said, look, let's don't do that. Let's keep the population low. Let's find technologies to minimize and make it easier for people to control their families and keep the population so instead of going to 8 billion, it goes up to 3 billion. Meanwhile, the technology, the ability to grow more food more efficiently and other tech and other benefits just makes the life of those 3 billion people better and better. Instead, what we did is say, what the hell? Let's get as many people as we can. So we run it up to 8 billion. And in that 123 years, it's hard to get a number on this, but adjusted for inflation, something like 200 to 300 trillion dollars was spent by the world's nations on just military shit. Now, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And just imagine if half of that was used to deal with the needs of the human race. The food, the clothing, the water, the shelter, that kind of stuff. To create space, to create shelter and all that. So that people were not wanting to blow things up, that skirmishes and fights would not build up ancient hatreds. Well, new hatreds. There's always plenty of ancient hatred. It all could have gone differently, but it didn't.
Yeah.
We still have people right now talking about, I think somebody just the other day, was reading this the other day, some hotshot, somebody you'd know, was giving this lecture about how it is the destiny of the human race to be 2 trillion and to spread out into the galaxy, right? They even talked about the fact that the solar system could hold 2 trillion people. And this person was not put in a straitjacket and carried off the stage and taken to a mental hospital, right? But there's actually that kind of crap out there. Even Elon Musk talks about it, right? Completely forgetting there's numbers of civilizations out there, and they're not particularly interested in having 5 trillion humans come out there to colonize whatever the hell is out there now.
Well, probably not to bring weaponry either. They're probably not interested in that either.
It's not going to work, right? And they're not going to let us bring our nuclear weapons out there either. So there's this detachment from reality that still runs through our cultures, most cultures, not all, and it has to end. And so we have to have a major worldview change, or we're it's all going to go, right? And the rich are probably thinking, not for me. I got a private plane. I got a bunker in New Zealand. It's okay. And you get a couple of nukes, and they'll go to DEFCON 2 right away. They'll close all the airways, all the air zones down. There'll be nobody flying anywhere, private planes or otherwise. You won't be able to get to New Zealand with and get into your private bunker. So you'll have to get into the bunker here in the U.S. And even though you're worth like $500 million, and the bunker is fabulous, unless it's completely made out of plastic, and you have some sort of internal hidden air system. Eventually, that people up above who are starving to death and dying and in the worst possible hell you can imagine, but there's going to be plenty of metal detectors and stuff available at most of the hardware stores. They're going to go get those, and they're going to be scanning around, and they will find that bunker. They will dig down, and they will take you out, and they will hang you by a tree and set you on fire, and then they will move into your bunker. Or if you're somebody worth $50-60 million and you're just impregnable and nothing can touch you, and the pain and suffering of this world cannot possibly touch you, and you happen to be working on the 70th floor of the World Trade Building at the wrong time, the travails, pain, anger, and issues of this world come to you. There's going to be plenty more of that. All right, plenty more of that. And so the illusions that people are operating under are just no longer sustainable. There are futurists telling us this, but there's also some futurists telling us it's all going to work out just fine. Religious people, in many cases, think it'll be fine because God will ensure and take care of the human race. I'm not in either of those people. And there's more people thinking along these lines. people smarter than me that I'm aware of, and I have some colleagues, and that is we either get a worldview change of some substance that is relatively global, and we get it soon, or don't even think about having kids. It would be wrong.
Yeah,
Right? Get
yeah,
a dog. They don't live that long, but don't have a kid because the world is going to turn into a living hell.
yeah. No,
And,
I
and
agree. I mean, this is something me and my wife have talked about. I mean, we've gone back and forth on whether or not we wanted to have kids because of the direction that the world is in right now. I mean, if we were able to get technology that was able to, yeah, do what you're talking about and help, the environment, help people kind of end the war opportunities and fix things, yeah, it would make a difference. We are. It does feel like something's coming though. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on disclosure yet, Stephen. To be fair with you, the government's is a tough cookie to crack, but
well,
um,
we've had 70 years to crack it. Okay,
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like we just started cracking it. We've been cracking
No,
at
I
it
agree with you. And I'm not
for
saying it's
70 years.
impossible. I'm just saying it's really hard right now to keep a very, very positive view. And you do a great job at doing it, no without a doubt. That's why I like speaking with you. I mean, because you definitely bring a good view.
But what's important, Matthew, is not just the tech. There's some tech that they have, yeah, and it may be helpful. That ain't enough. What is going to save us is we need a worldview change. We actually have to rethink our place in the world and who we are, what we are, and what is important and what is not important. And while there are nice little books you can go buy that'll tell you all this, we don't need, and maybe it might even change your worldview. We need this to happen to not 1, 10, 15 people. We need a worldview change to most of the world's population,
No, I agree with you. I
4
agree
to
with
8
you.
billion.
Yeah.
Now, that's a lot of self-help books. So the only candidate, the only thing that's come along in our lifetime that could even approach a worldview change of that magnitude is disclosure, the confirmation of the ET presence, almost certainly followed by open contact. We already have plenty of secret contact, but we need open contact. This is so profound that it has the power to change the worldview of every living person, in some cases a little bit, in some cases a big bit. But that worldview change, if properly serviced, is what opens the doors to the solutions that we have to have. If we end up in open contact with ETs a couple years later, and they, based upon our being cooperative with them, they're willing to provide technology that even surpasses whatever we've been cooking up in our labs, just out of the kindness of their hearts, assuming they have a heart, then that makes it even better.
I
Right?
hope they have a heart,
Right?
for the record.
Right? But in the
Yeah,
early
yeah,
days when
yeah.
they showed up, that was all still possibly on the table. But based on the worldview of the time, we just tried to shoot them down. Okay. That's not the good way to start a relationship. And
Yeah.
so our worldview has changed since 47. I mean, there's no question we have a less, I don't know, there's some softer edges to what I call global perspective and worldview. And there's more, I think, more pockets of intelligence and common sense, but there's still a huge swath of misery, autocracy, and stupidity. And when you got 8 billion people, a huge swath could mean 300 million. Well, 300 million can wreak havoc.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you don't have the luxury of well, as long as it's a plurality. No. And so this is why I do what I do. My life was changed. My path ultimately diverted in my last year of high school, watching the Cuban Missile Crisis, or my sophomore year of high school, junior year, watching the Cuban Missile Crisis, and suddenly get awakened to the fact that that's not good, and that just started me going in a certain direction. By the time I got to college in end of '64, there was this thing going on in Southeast Asia, which I was starting to hear about and learn about, and eventually I realized, ooh, this is not good. And then I learned, oh, this is bad. And then I learned, oh, we got tricked into going. We shouldn't even be there. We got lied to by our own government. And then I learned how much slaughter we were doing. And then I learned, well, of course, Chinese had nuclear weapons, the Soviets had nuclear weapons. And while they didn't have their troops on the ground, they were supporting North Vietnam, and we were limited to some degree in how we were going to deal with this because we didn't want to start a nuclear war. But as long as we didn't have a nuclear war, we could carpet bomb the hell out of North and South Vietnam and kill millions of people. And that was cool. And that so disturbed me that and other things resulted in my inability to continue to pursue whatever goals I had at the time, and just basically came right off the rails. I wasn't alone. In the late 60s and 70s, huge numbers of young people in this country went straight off the rails into the woods, setting up communes, dropping out, going on drugs like you wouldn't believe it. And just
what a time, huh? What a time.
It was a glorious time, but it was not a good precursor to dealing with the world's problems that were going to develop dramatically over the next 50 years. But, you know, that effect, plus, and this is, you know, interesting to me. I'm a nuclear child, and I've lived my entire life under the threat of nuclear war. Of course, you have to be older than 78 to do that. But it's worse, and not worse, but it's more intriguing than that, because I'm a child of the bomb. My father was in the Navy. He was in Guadalcanal. He was in the Pacific.
Oh.
And so when they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima, it took, in Nagasaki, shortly thereafter, the Japanese surrendered. And then the government had to muster hundreds and hundreds of thousands of troops out of the Pacific. Well, that's not an easy thing, right? It's not like, you just say, well, book an air flight and get back here when you can. No, I mean, you had to muster them out. There was this it took a while. It took months. And eventually he gets mustered out and he gets back to Mare Island, which was his port of entry. By this time, it's like, it's practically the end of 1995. It might even be early 96, but it's certainly very late 95. So he gets back, he has to get assigned. So they assigned him to Bethesda Naval Hospital, because he was a medical corpsman. That was his area. Okay. He didn't fight at Guadalcanal. He was a medic, but I don't think he was a troop medic. In other words, he did not go ashore. I think he worked on a hospital ship, which still means you saw really bad things.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So he goes to Bethesda. Now, he's been at war now for several years. He gets to Bethesda and he heads straight to some of the local lounges in downtown Bethesda. They're gone now, but I know where they were. My mother was very attractive. And it took, well, bada bing, bada bam, bada boom. Is what it did, right? Met her, very short courtship, married her, conceived me in March of 1946. And so my conception literally, was it February? No, it was March. Is directly connected in a straight line back to the bombs dropped on Hiroshima. If they don't drop those bombs, if the war goes on a little longer, I mean, this is the old butterfly effect, whatever. But the point is,
sure.
I'm not. He doesn't meet my mother. He meets somebody else. I don't get born. Now that's, of course, it's kind of like.
It's cool though. Think about it. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
But it's tied together. There is a connection. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was born of the nuclear bombs, which is why when I saw Oppenheimer, I was incredibly
movie was incredible, right? They did such a good job.
It affected me hugely. Yeah. Because I've always had this connection, and so as life is going on, I pay attention. Now there are nuclear activist groups out there, and there are nuclear war activists or anti-war nuclear activists out there that their heads are filled with vast quantities of information. I'm not one of those. I don't have the patience, the chops, or the pension span to be that kind of activist. But this is different. This issue, in being an anti-nuclear activist, is very narrow, very focused on something. It's pretty much kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Dry, but important, right? Obviously, the ET issue is far more interesting. It's profoundly interesting. It's incredibly interesting. All right. And so it's more fun. But what I knew figured out early on, that the anti-war activists were not succeeding. The anti-nuke people were not succeeding.
Oh.
The pro-nuclear reduction people, they got some reductions. They got it down to 20,000. I haven't done anything since. And virtually the anti-nuclear weapon movement is virtually nothing. There's nothing there. There's nothing going on. Okay. And we're actually building new weapons, advanced weapons, whatever.
Right,
We're
right. Yeah, they
parading
they
them out.
gave up. Yeah, they gave up.
They basically gave up.
Yeah,
And so, because basically they're up against something that they cannot overcome.
sure.
The ET issue has the power to overcome it. And when I figured that out, then I realized this is probably the best chance we have to deal first and foremost with the nukes, which we have to get rid of. You know, I mean, it's like if you have a nuclear war, all your other diplomacies and games and everything don't matter anymore.
It's done.
Right?
Yeah, it's done.
All the issues are gone. It's all over.
Yeah.
And so that should be number one. The fact that we can't do anything about that should not shock us. We can't do anything much about anything else. And so this has the power to deal with the nuke issue. And so the motivation for me is very much entrenched in that possibility. And that'll keep you up in the morning. That'll get you going, right? That'll keep you in it. What's at stake is so much more than just we need to show there's ETs here. That's easy, right? But dealing with it, the worldview change that may come from it, and how it could be converted into getting rid of the nukes, that is truly profound. Not to mention the fact, as I've said many times, open contact, I think, follows relatively soon after ET contact. And I think the nuke issue will be first and foremost on the agenda.
What are your concerns? What are your concerns with weaponizing the technology currently, though? I mean, this ET technology, where do you stand on that? What are your thoughts?
I would think that they've certainly thought about it, and they'll weaponize anything. They'll weaponize a bowl of Rice Krispies. I mean, they'll weaponize anything. So there might be a ET-derived technology weapons race going on. Who the hell knows?
It's possible. I always wonder about the Tic Tac. I mean, that for me, the Tic Tac is the interesting thing. With Fravor's sighting was, I always wonder, if that's ours, is this their anti-nuke technology? Is this why they're not telling us? This is their way of dealing with nuclear weapons.
No. There's a lot of reasons why they're not telling us.
Well, I mean, one of them. You know what I mean? One of them.
Well, the technology clearly is something that one of the reasons the embargo exists is because one of many is that they don't want this technology in the public arena. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and if they have built an anti-gravity craft, they don't want you to know that. Admittedly, it seems like they fly them a little too obviously from time to time. Why they do that, I don't know. But in any event, they don't want us to know that.
Yeah.
And that's a decision you have to ask them about. All right. But we could ultimately weaponize some of the tech we've gotten from these craft. It's also the case that since the late 1990s, we've been working on antimatter weapons. I've talked about this. I didn't know about this until an article, and I'm not talking some fringe. I think it was could have been the Post, could have been the Wall Street Journal. I forget, but an article popped up out of nowhere around the year 2000, 1999, about the Air Force's work on antimatter weapons. And I took physics in school, so I knew exactly what antimatter was. And I'm going, oh, please tell me that's not true.
Right.
Please tell me that's not true. Because, and in fact, the idea has been out there for some time. There is a movie called Angels and Demons, which was made from a book by Dan Brown. It's about the guy in the Vatican, and antimatter as a weapon is in there. It's actually core to the film. It's simply about being able to garnish it, contain it safely in a very powerful magnetic field until such time as you want to bring it together with regular matter. And that's what happens in that movie. So they're working on antimatter weapons. Okay. Most people don't understand how much energy is in matter. Most people just don't. They just don't know. Probably one person in 100 or 200 or 300 actually understand how much matter is in energy. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's about it. In terms of the general population now.
Sure.
So how much is it? The matter that was converted to energy in the hydrogen bomb was like the equivalent of 1/50th the matter in a single dime. It's just a tiny bit, right? Just a little bit of energy. That's how much energy got converted to create that big explosion. That's how much energy is in matter. And so if you could accumulate enough antimatter into a highly contained magnetic field, so it's not able to touch or come in. Say the size of a ball, a baseball, and you put it into a device, right? That has it all contained in the magnetic field.
It's a
And then
disaster,
you
without a
got your
doubt.
regular baseball over here. And so the way the bomb works is you drop it down, and you hit a switch, and then the two come together. Baseball, well, two baseballs. It would blow up the entire nation of Japan, create a tsunami that would probably be 500 feet high, killing millions on the Chinese coast. Right? That's how much energy is in matter. The ETs probably already figured out how to use that. Not
I'm
necessarily
sure.
craft,
Yeah.
but our Air Force, at least as of 1999, 2000, was working on antimatter weapons. And guess what? Story never turned up again. It just disappeared, and there was no follow up. And I have not seen a single article since, because that was not supposed to get out.
Interesting.
It didn't have a big splash because most people don't know squat about matter. And those that do know probably know it shouldn't have been out. And so they probably called up some people to say, "What in the hell are you doing? Don't ever mention that again."
Right. Well,
Now, that's us.
yeah, they're never going to leave a stone unturned, Stephen. You know that.
You're
You
not.
know that.
So
But
we're
yeah,
all,
go ahead.
Brent's saying it's all going to blow up unless we have this change. And this, to me, that's my contribution. I believe disclosure is the master key to 1,000 doors. Like the manager of your apartment complex who has that master key to every apartment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they might have to get in, change the plumbing. Disclosure is a master key to 1,000 doors, and on the other side of every one of those doors is a possibility, a solution, an option that could benefit us. That's powerful, including worldview change. And
Well,
the
I mean,
government
I hope we get it, Stephen. I mean, I hope we do. I think it's the incredible work you've done over a long time. I've known you since I was a kid. I've heard you speak and stuff. So I mean, it's always a pleasure for me to speak to people like you who I've listened to for so many years, and to get a chance to kind of just reach out. Hey, you're real. You're here. And it's been a really great conversation. I don't want to keep you all night. It's Sunday night. We've been over a little over 40.
Yeah, I got another
40.
interview at midnight too.
Okay.
So
Well,
look, a couple of promos.
Yeah. Final thought. Go ahead. Final thought.
Well, it's promo time. Look,
oh yeah, we can promo. Sure.
I need people to follow me on Twitter at Steve Bassett.
It's in the description. Yep, it's in the description.
Yeah, or Search Paradigm Research Group.
Both are there. Yep.
If you want to be involved in the Shift Storm, you need to go to storm.org. It's all right there. It's not hard. You can go big, you can go small. Some people will probably each send in 100 messages to each one of them. 100 tagged tweets, 100 emails. That's 600. They might do it. No problem. You know, as many as you want, but you need to change the message. You can send the same message to all three, but don't send the same message to the same member. If you're going to send 10, you got to make them all a little different. Otherwise, it's boilerplate, and it's a turnoff. It diminishes the power.
Yeah, they think it's a bot or something like that. They don't want to listen to it. They don't think it's real.
Well, it just shows it's a bot. It's like a bot.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I'll be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo in February at the LAX Hilton. So there will be probably 25,000 people there, but it could be pretty exciting, given things that are in the works. Also, I'm going to be speaking and helping to produce the Contact in the Desert Conference, May 30 to June 3 in the Indian Wells Resort in California. We did really well last year. It's probably going to double this year, over 3,000. Get your tickets when you get your tickets. But if you want to be at that conference and you need a hotel, you got to book the hotel now. Do not wait.
Okay.
There won't be any hotel rooms for miles and miles and miles, or they'll be so expensive it'll be ridiculous. So you got to book your room if you want to go to Contact in the Desert. Also, recently with my partner in Hollywood, launched the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance at hollywooddisclosurealliance.org. It's already off to a pretty good start. It's a networking organization, 501c3. And we have about 50 UAP people that want to become founding members. But on the other side of this networking organization are the film industry, the entertainment industry. And we have about 23 founding members there. We need more. So if you are somebody who has some time and grade as a professional filmmaker, director, producer, writer, actor, production, CGI, whatever the hell, right?
Yeah.
You're into this issue, and you want to be contacted by people that have the information and stories and scripts, because there are tons of them.
Yeah.
You join up, you go up in the founding member, and people know who to contact. So this is going to be, I think, an important entity. It's going to help. It's mostly for the post-disclosure world. It's to make it easier for us, people in our world, to meet and get the support from the people in their world and make the content that's going to be needed after disclosure to help educate and bring people up to speed. 8 billion people. That's a lot of people.
A lot,
and so
yeah.
it's going to be a big deal. That's going pretty well. HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. And I believe that may be it. Watch. The bill will be signed on the 21st of this month. They will go home for their holidays. Hopefully they'll be getting calls from their staffers in Washington saying, don't want to interrupt your Christmas, Senator, but you may want to check your Twitter notification box, because it's filling up with thousands of messages that want you to hold a hearing. Okay. And then hope that in early January there will be you'll see something turn up on the news or on your Twitter or whatever, that Senator Warner has in fact set a date.
Very cool.
For the Intel Committee hearings, and then you can just start counting the days down after that until this truth embargo, which is basically a dead policy walking now, is over. All right.
No, I appreciate your time. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, indeed. Okay, Matthew, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great interview at midnight. You're a champion for staying up late and doing it, and keep pushing, man. I really appreciate the time and appreciate your work. Everybody, have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you for coming to Terrestrial Material. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure to go to these links down here. Follow Stephen on Twitter. Go to the Paradigm Research Group. Shift Forum. Hey, take an opportunity, guys. We really want to thank everybody for coming tonight. So have a great night, Stephen. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time on Terrestrial Material. Have a good night.
Bye.
Absolutely.